So I said it's personality review. He said yes, it's supposed to be there because it consists of the attributes which represent behavior. As I said, each individual behaves differently. I talked about the definition in summary concerning personality, right? So some of it you can get it from there. And they're saying personality is a distinct of traits, which I talked about, and the behavior, so you can skip that, right? You read it from there. So now, we have this diagram, which shows, you are clear there. You can get me at the far end, right? Thank you. Look at this diagram carefully, yeah? It has different temperaments with different types of personalities. We have the strong emotions with that axis, upwards, and the downwards, showing the weak emotions. We have the ones that are cutting across, unchangeable temperaments, and those that fall under changeable temperaments. So, we have the choleric. These are the different types of people who are very excitable if you meet them. Yeah, egocentric and exhibitionist and impulsive. That's their nature, and that's how they are. So we have the sanguine. In the sanguine criteria, we have most of them like social workers, even the musicians, they can be found here. Playful, easygoing, sociable, carefree, and hopeful. These are people actually, even though we are saying they're carefree, they are not careful as such, but these are the ones who are assisting the society. Okay? So we have the pragmatic. These are reasonable, principled, and controlled, and persistent. You can even identify from the word grouping and with the vocation traits which they have, that actually these people, they belong to this type of a group. We have the melancholic. These are the anxious ones, worried, unhappy, suspicious, and those. We have a number of them. Most of them, they group like, we have different types of personality, right? We have in groups like, these are sort of temperaments, but these temperaments may even go along with the grouping. We have A, B, C, and D. There are those who belong to the A achievement. You can still have their temperaments found here. We have, for example, the one that you are talking about, so that you don't forget, the D. The D, they belong to, like, most of them are the melancholics. They are worried, and most of them, sometimes they fall into depression. Yeah, it's very easy for them to fall into depression. Yeah, and like those, like the B, the group B. The group B can even be found in the sanguines. These are carefully, they don't usually have heart attacks. But most of them, in the group, the melancholics and the phlegmatic, you find that these people, they can start from even heart attacks. Why? Because, like the phlegmatic here, reasonable, principled, controlled, persistence, steadfast, and calm. They would make sure actually that they are the high achievers. They are in the A group. They want always to get the A. If they get a C plus, they cannot even relax. You know? These are the A achievers.
Oh, yeah.
So, a better description actually is trying to be achieved using two major axes, the emotional and non-emotional. Yes, we have to consider those who are emotional and those who are not emotional, the changeable and those who can actually adjust. They are actually high cost. We have seen criminals, those who cannot even learn, they cannot be rehabilitated. So we need to identify them. Even if they are brought to hospital, you are dealing with them, right? You should understand their personality. Immediately you are talking to a patient, find out how they actually conversating with you, or how they reply to you. Some of them are very reluctant. You can actually try to probe so many questions to them, they may not actually give you the answer. And that can give you a problem in your diagnosis. But learn to understand how these people are, that this type of people fall under this type of a group. Okay? So the first axis here, strong, I hope I've not skipped anything. Yeah, no. Yeah, the first axis actually is the strong, is separate from the strong, weak emotions, the melancholic, and the caloric temperament from the phlegmatic and sanguine. And the sanguine is just describing the diagram, the way it is. You can do it on your own on this one so that you don't waste much time. It won't be very different. We have classifications of individuals in temperaments. The Galen built on Hippocrates theories. These Galen people, they're a group of people who were actually also theorists. So they built on what others, the Hippocrates, who started writing about the personalities. So they saw a gap and then wrote something on what these Hippocrates left behind. So they noticed that the chronic person, passionate, ambitious, and bold, these are the ones, this is how they added them. The melancholic person, reserved, anxious, and unhappy. The sanguine, joyful, eager, and what? Optimistic, just like the way it is shown in the diagram, okay? And then Shedon and Stevens also. They wrote according to the structure of the individual, your physique, the way other people are. They say the ectomorphs, these are tall, long, lean, socially uninhibited, and lonely. This is what Shedon and Stevens. So sometimes you may look at both.
Are you?
There are people I've seen who are very, very tall. And active and athletic. And that proves right, isn't it? The enderman, these are fat, rounded, and pear-shaped, and friendly, and happy and sociable. I think you have seen. You can tell from this, from the aesthetic as this individual you are treating belongs to this people. The Kardang, this Kardang, he just talked about those people who are talkative, those who are not talkative. He says, okay, there are those who are extroverts and there are those who are introverts. That's what he talked about. He said, interested in internal ideas, meaning they're very thoughtful and reserved and responsible. Then the extroverts, he said, interested in the world, outgoing, sociable, and impulsive and carefree. So you can see that these extroverts, you can actually place them under which type of temperament? Angry. Exactly. So you are following, that's good. So we come to what I said, we have two things. This is Mayer, Friedman, and Gray. These are the guys who talked about the grouping. He said type A, who are they? Ambitious, rigidity, and organized, high status of conscious, impatient, anxious, and proactive, and time conscious. These are the ones who fall under type A. They're prone to coronary artery disease. Exactly. Individuals with type A personality are with three major symptoms: free-floating hostility triggered by minor incidences. Note how they actually behave there, how they follow up with their own temperament. And you may be surprised that you are attending to a patient and immediately you just ask them a question and their reaction. This is why you are learning about this behavioral science. So understand why these certain individuals will be answering to you in such a manner. So the impatience tend to trigger irritation, short-temperedness, but you need to have patience. You need to have empathy, you as the medical personnel. Then competitive drive, which leads to stress and achievement-driven mentality. That's why I say these people, they always make sure that they get the A, right? The A's, or they achieve whatever they want. So we have seen the type of personality types that we have, right? So now let's look at the theories. These theories have been actually come up with different people criticizing themselves and others improving on them. We have the psychodynamic theory. These talk about the internal thoughts, the processes of the mind, and based on by about what they could see. They never thought even the mind existed so much, no. But Sigmund said, no, there's something that we are actually overlooking. Internal aspects, internal processes. So he says he developed as a result of internal events within the mind. He actually gave them a grouping saying there's something. We have the preconscious, which contains memories that are not part of the current thought, but rarely brought to mind. If you want them anytime, you can just recall them, especially when you are studying. You remember we learned about the memory, isn't it? So most of the time you put those things in the preconscious memory. So immediately you see the question, you then flashes out and you're able to recall. So you are getting from the preconscious mind. In case the question is twisted the other way, try to relate to everything. Give more details in that. Okay? The unconscious, these are thoughts and desires. Maybe you don't want actually to think about them. They are unconscious. Or the subconscious somehow, but you are flashing, they are trying to come forward, then you are replacing them. So usually these thoughts, they are full of those embarrassing thoughts, that you don't want to actually to think about. Or maybe they are very distressful, and these are the ones that brings about personality disorders. A lot of people are in UTM because of repressed what? Such kind of space in within your system and lower the what? The immunity system. And then someone becomes susceptible to so many infections and so many diseases. And then you are found bedridden in a UTH. You've seen a number of people who are bedridden. Meanwhile, if you look at their mindset, just because of depression, which now moves at a higher level, we call it what? Depression, isn't it? Yeah. So the division of the mind, something that you can see, it looks small, yeah? And it's bigger. Yeah. The unconscious, the one that is available, that you can see, things that you can think about, and the one that you are not very much available, that it's immersed in water, but it has different depths of the mind again there. We have the id, we have the ego. People talk about satisfy your ego. You are always talking about that, isn't it? Yeah. Meaning you are satisfying the reality, which is driven by the id. The id always thinks there something that is pleasurable, right? That's considering the consequences. As long as it's able to enjoy it, it goes on. And the ego is busy supporting. Yes, it's readily available. Enjoy. Okay? But the super ego is the one that will come and reprimand and say, hey, why are you doing this? This is wrong. This is time for you to study. Right? It's only the super ego. That's why we have it as a moral principle. I've summarized on this one, right? With different examples. Yeah. So the awareness of small amounts of mind, activity, most of the remains written from us or in our unconscious. So information in the unconscious mind affects behavior, although one is not aware of it. It affects what? Behavior. You may behave differently and say, oh, it was a slip of the mind. Why? Because something was in the unconscious and you haven't faced it. Then it will come when you are not even expecting. You've talked about slips of the tongue. Those are the things that we hide afterwards. Then all of a sudden it's just, oh, I didn't mean that. Right? So personality then, we are saying that to develop from a conflict between two forces. Biological, aggressive pleasure, seeking derives versus internal socialized control over this drive. Meaning, we are biologically motivated, isn't it? To satisfy certain demands within us. Sometimes it could even be in an aggressive manner, or sometimes it could be something of pleasure. So the three interacting then systems that forces those, as I alluded before, are three. These are the ones which are at play. The id, the ego, and the superego. That's just a structure of the personality to make it simpler for you to understand. Okay? The id, look at what the id says. I've already given examples, but even with that structure, id will say, I want to do that now. Then the ego say, maybe we can compromise. Somehow a bit lenient, but look at the superego. It's not right to do that because you know nothing like a compromise because it's all wrong. Okay? So personality consists of three parts which I've already mentioned there. Okay? The id usually consists of all our primitive words, innate urges. Why? Because most of the time they mislead you. So sometimes they mislead you, sometimes they do not. But they're actually found within us. And bodily, the urges which they urge bodily. Look at when you are actually thirsty, what do? You look for what, doesn't it? To quench the thirst. Right? Yeah. The needs, sometimes you may be very much in need of a certain thing and to satisfy that. And the sexual desire. Sometimes you just have somebody else, I just have to do this. But then, that's bodily. That's the id. That's not somebody operating under the what? Under the id. Especially in the wrong time, on your wrong time with the wrong person. Yeah. There are lots of differences. Look at these criminals. You can imagine that I'm sure a number of you have watched that Pamela video, right? That one was adjudicated. Yeah. The way they were hitting her with an iron bar and blood coming out. You have seen that exercise, eh? So what was at play there was what? The id. These are the what? The aggressive impulses in that person with this criminal mind. So you can analyze such a person. What type of a person he is. What was at play. So the id is unconscious and operates at pleasure principle. It wants immediately total gratification and not considering the potential cost of seeking this goal. This club that's unrestrained, like that person was eating an innocent person. Yeah? So the ego's task then is to hold the id in check. It can control when it is necessary until conditions allow for satisfaction of its impulses. Yeah? There should be some kind of controlled restraint, that is, if it is possible. So the ego then operates in the what? In the reality principle. And it takes account of external conditions and the consequences of others. Yes, it will actually give you like a checkup to say, look at this. If you do this, this is what we'll do. And then choose. It's your own choice now. So the superego, which develops from the what? The ego. Because the ego is a bit weak than the superego. The superego is stronger than the ego. It consists of what? The morals that govern the society, the values, the ethics, all these, they all belong to that. So sometimes you may be questioning, how did you work on this patient? Maybe if they find that something has been done in such a manner, they'll say, but you were trained at University of Zambia. You went through behavioral science. Don't you have any ego? Your super ego sure couldn't allow you to think about how you are going to treat this patient. How did you give this kind of time? How did you do that? They'll blame you. Because they know very well that you've been going through a certain training that should give you some kind of restraining from doing something very wrong. Or we can say you're conscious to remind you that here you are actually going wrong. Can you consult? Okay? Because there are other individuals you know I'm already qualified. I cannot consult anyone. Then you are wrong. Okay? Yeah. You find that you are always explaining, always giving reports, because you are overlooking the superego. Okay? So that's why it consists of certain morals and ethics. That's why I'm emphasizing on that, because medicine has got ethics that's why you do study medical the ethics, isn't it? Education, isn't it? Yes. So that's why those things are there. So the effects of parental influence and experience prohibition, punishment can be given, criticism, rewards, and all those before under that. Yes, we have now the defense mechanisms. Freud believes anxiety results from the ego's inability to mediate the conflicts between the what? The id and superego. How do you run away from the id? You are under the influence of the id. And now you realize the superego is just there, peeping at you and saying you are wrong. But you are in such a situation. So the only way you have to see that, oh, how do I defend myself? Or how do I protect? Or how do I get away from here? You can actually protect yourself by using what? Defense mechanism. And people will know. So the ego seeks to restore balance through various protective measures known as the defense mechanisms, such as they are different: repression, forgetting, or pushing from unconscious into unconscious. This I talked about it, right? So there's what is called again rationalization. Rationalization is another defense mechanism. There's another defense, it's a defense mechanism which means conjuring up socially acceptable reasons for thoughts or actions based on unacceptable motives. For example, you may do something and yet you know very well that you had an intention not to achieve what you wanted to do, but you give an excuse. A young woman explains that she ate an entire chocolate because he knew very well by the time he reaches the place where this person was expecting her to deliver, it will melt. Meanwhile, this person was just interested in the chocolate. That's a good example. I don't give marks when giving because me somebody is thinking the same thing will be applying in your medicine. You'll be doing certain things and then you know, well, how do I escape this? Or else the superintendent is going to be on me. And you get a very good reason. And they'll say, okay, we know, but that was good. That was good. Okay. And you escape. Displacement. Displacement is done. Why? The dialectic and emotional response from a dangerous object to those who are actually overpowering you. And then you go and hit it on a weak person. You know very well this one cannot actually fight. So you are actually directing that on them. And it's very common. Projection, transfer unaccepted motive or impotence to others. A lot of people, they're always doing that. You may say someone, you hate me so much. Meanwhile, you are the person who hates that person. Those are examples that are big, but you can give them in the medical terms whereby you may do certain things that you know this is not actually up to the right standard. Okay? Yeah. So the regression is the time when somebody needs attention. It's very common among patients. When they know that one patient is well looked after and the other one feels like these doctors here seem like they don't care about me, then they'll do all sorts of things. Even if they used to go to the bathroom on their own or to the toilet, they'll stop. And everything will just be done there. And then it happens to some people because they want attention. Okay? They do that. Even adults can even serve thumbs. You've seen that, eh? Exactly. So that is called repression. Responding to a threatening situation in a way appropriate to an earlier age or level development. So that's about defense mechanisms. We have a number of them, but these are some of them that I put forward. Okay. We have psychosocial development. I brought it up. This is psychosocial development under personality. We are talking about the mind and the sexual development, where where you can see the active area at that particular time. So progress through several psychosocial stages. They go according to the stages, and that energy that somebody is born with. There's always that kind of energy that individuals are born with. This is called that individual energy, found in a particular focus of stage to be achieved. So if that one is not achieved, there's a fixation or emotional disturbance that will come up, and sometimes it could go up even into adulthood. And this very, very clear. We are seeing it. It's there. we cannot deny. This is the summary of our notes concerning this. In the interest of time, yeah. We still have some time, right? How many minutes more? Huh? 15, 17, okay, yeah. So we have in stage 1, that starts from the onset, and the erogenous zone means the area of operation or activity is actually in the mouth. And the conflict, weaning off the breast or weaning off breast or the bottom, and what happens in future. If you do these things beforehand, these are some of the fixation that happens to some other people. Some of them, it is translated into smoking or overeating or other activity. Some of them, they talk too much because of what that means. That's a fixation. It's not in everyone, but it's a common feature. We have the anal. That moves from 1 to 3. And the area of concern in the erogenous, it's the anus. And this, the major conflict, this is the time when you are doing teaching children to go to the toilet, isn't it? Exactly. Toilet training. Depending how this child is trained. This is the time when a lot of children, sometimes they get abused. Are you aware of that? Yes, at this age. 2 years, 3 years, children are abused. And you know what happens? It lingers on them. You may think, no, this child is small. He's not going to remember. But this is the abuse that comes up. It's always resurfacing when they grow up. We are seeing these things in the patients who come there. And then somebody is now an adult. Okay? So, sometimes goes, depending on the type of training somebody goes, if he was actually a restrictive life, very restrictive life, they are very smart people. And even not only that, I'm summarizing on what it could be even a lot. Sometimes they're not able to share. They can have some data. I'm telling you, for someone to give you data. Oh, it's in them. They become very stingy. So I start wondering, how did this person become? And then it started from the time when they were young, the way they were treated at the time of training. So that's how personality comes from. You are forming up an individual. The practice stage, 3 years to 6 years. This is the time of actually, the child is now admiring the opposite sex, right? Yeah, they don't know. They don't know. They're just drawn. They're just drawn by nature. You find the girls, they become very attracted to their father. This is what Sigmund says. Hello? Okay? Maybe we can go to the note like we just follow that so that I don't repeat. The other side, the month, since we have done that, I skipped that in the interest of time. Even on that, yeah, we go to the final stage. The pleasure is in genitalia. The boys attach sexual desires to female parent called what? Oedipa complex. I think you've heard about that. Yeah. So girls attach sexual desires to male parent called what? Electron complex. But it doesn't actually happen to such as, yeah. So boys develop castration, anxiety, and fear of the punishment for such desires. We have seen how boys fear their fathers, isn't it? Yeah. Girls develop penis envy, discontent with female criteria. And in such a way. Hello? Allow me to finish, please. Today we are having problems in Zambia. We are having this one, lesbians, we are having the gays. It comes a long way. There are others, like the girls, develop a penis envy in discontent with female genitalia, translated into something else. Others, they develop some kind of inferiority complex. They can't even come to university and sit along with this for these boys. No, they'll feel so inferior. Even in everything, they'll say, unless a man does this. Everything, it's a man who should do that. So that's kind of discontent. It has been transformed into other activities and other thoughts. Okay? Fixation, sexual devices, yeah, weak or confused sexual identity. Sometimes they may even say, no, I don't know. If you ask them, are you a girl or a boy? I don't know. Or you may ask them, you are a female. We have people who we are actually having there. This person is even an older platform. But he still wants to change their sex. Can you imagine? Yes. So we have such things, they are happening. That's not only because they're in fixation. They could be in fixation, but now they're translated into a what? A personality disorder, which you need to assess using personality assessment so that you can give good medication. Okay? So latency stage, it is from 7 to 11 years. The libido energies are weak. Behavior centered on interaction with same sex, like the way you are sitting, some people they just want to get along with the same sex and all that. Because now they've grown up and they're able to recognize, and they're in school. They've started school by then. So they even identify to say, which sport can I be in? Oh, football is for boys and netball is for girls, right? Things like that. Genital stage, that is level to adult. The growing adolescent shakes off all the dependencies and then learns to feel mature with the opposite sex. Because they'll be comparing, oh, me, my voice has changed, this one, you know, my breasts are coming out, all those things. They're able now to what? To compare. Because there's now maturity in the physical nature. Fixation difficulties in the elder stages, the giving and receiving of adult, mature love may be difficult to achieve. To some people, if they lack this, if they haven't passed through this stage, it will be very difficult for them. They'll be thinking like they're still young. Because at one time, they skipped this stage. When their friends were actually exercising, to say, hey, let's see. Themselves, they didn't do that. Okay. So, I'm sorry, behavioral science is such a funny way. Anyway, I'm good, I'm not going to teach you sexuality. Yeah. How does it go? So, we have different major theories, like the psychoanalytic one which we've been talking about. Psychoanalytic, or what we are talking about, the defense mechanism falls under what? Psychoanalytic theory. That was proposed by who? By Sigmund Freud. Then we have social psychology theory, we have trend theory, we have self-theory. So the social cognitive theory was by what? By Albert Bandura. The social cognitive perspective of personality emphasizes the importance of observation learning and self-efficacy wherever you trust yourself, and the situational influences and cognitive processes. You are observing things and you are able to identify them and think in a right manner. No wonder you go to the labs, isn't it? Most when you are there, you are using the social cognitive theory. So, Albert Bandura emphasized the importance of social learning, as I alluded before. Yeah, he is the proponent who said, especially children, they learn through what? Observation and trusting themselves, the self-efficacy. So the trend theory, the trend perspective of personality, is centered in identifying and describing, measuring the specific traits that make up what? Human personality. They are actually there just to identify what type of traits are you carrying. Yeah? And believe that they can better understand the difference between individuals. So Hansen suggests that there are 3 dimensions of personality. We talked about the extroversion. This is another group who talked about the extraversion and the introversion, and the emotional instability and neuroticism, whereby you find people who are full of fear. There are individuals who are just like that. They are born like that. And psychoticism. These are the people who are actually prone to suffer from maybe psychosis and all that, such kind of illnesses. Raymond Cattell, he defines 3 personality, those which are just, you can easily actually identify. He even included those that were talked about by others. And Robert McGraw and Pocock introduced the Big 5 theory, which identifies 5 key dimensions of extraversion, just like a repetition on that, and neuroticism, but he went further to describe them and see how they are. And the openness to experience conscientiousness, and agreeableness. So the humanistic perspective, this is where even the motivation comes in. The humanistic perspective of personality focuses on psychological growth, free will, and personal awareness. It takes a more positive look on human nature, and it's centered on how each person can achieve their individual potential. And they can only do that through motivation in most cases. And Carl Rogers, he's the one who introduced the centered approach whereby you doctors, when you're talking to your parents, you must be very passionate. It's Carl Rogers who actually encouraged. He's one of these. He's one of the theorists. Believes in the inherent goodness that all people are good. There's something in them is good. Even those criminals that you're looking at, those who are actually killing others, you can see there's a certain trait in them that you can deduce from them. That's why he was saying to him, he believed in inherent what? Goodness of people, and emphasized the importance of free will and psychological growth. He suggests that the actualizing each other's is driving force beyond human. To achieve certain things, you need actually to have that drive in you, which we can see from Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow himself, he just came and decided, he said, okay, you are all talking about all these things, but there must be some kind of a drive that should move in you. And in all our needs, they should be based on what? On priority. And they should move in the hierarchy. Yeah? So let me just take that. So, this is what you can't stress. So, I would suggest that people are motivated by hierarchy of needs. So the most basic needs are centered on things for life such as food, water, and people move up in the hierarchy. And these needs become centered on things such as esteem and self-actualization. So as you move, as you satisfy the lower needs. I don't know if you've heard about Abraham Maslow. Have you heard about that? The hierarchy of needs. Good. It's not something for that. So then we can talk about we have time. That's the thing. Usually the personality is a bit long. Usually I take 2 hours on it to complete it. Now we can arrange and see how we can do it so that maybe through the voice and all that. It's just any other day so that we don't take up the other mandate and start the same thing. So that we move and finish up. Okay. Thank you.